Hello and welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. Russia launched a fresh wave of missile attacks on Ukraine Thursday morning, targeting cities like Dnipro and Kryvyi Rih in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Now, Ukrainian authorities have suggested that this marks the first use of an intercontinental ballistic missile by Russia in the war, though international observers do remain skeptical. Now, to help us unpack these developments, I'm joined by Vaidotas Malinionis, founder and managing director at the National Defense Foundation. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for being with us here this morning on TVP World Talks. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting.
All right, Vaidotas. So Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed that his forces tested a new type of missile during Thursday morning's attack on Ukraine. Now, how significant is this escalation? What does it mean for the conflict in Ukraine moving forward? And give us an overview here of what your take is on exactly what missiles, what type of missiles were used, because there seems to be a little bit of confusion there.
Yes, you are absolutely right. There is a certain level of confusion because Ukrainian forces, from Ukrainian sources, we received information that it was an intercontinental missile, but from the United States, officially we received message that it was intermediate missile. So, and if it is intermediate missile, which ranges up to 5,000 kilometers, yes, which means that it's not as high level, escalation as we suspect. Because if Russians would try intercontinental missile, yes, then our allies who possesses, especially nuclear capability, their reaction should be much tougher. And by the way, so which means that this intermediate range missile demonstrated that probably Putin's goal was to demonstrate that they are very resolute to take actions, especially in response to the usage of Western weapons against Russia's targets inside of Russia. What precisely Ukrainians did, they did a strike with ATACMS and Storm Shadow missiles and Scalp missiles inside of Russia. So, and it was Russia's response. But that is also the goal is, of course, is to rise level of intimidation, yes, and to paralyze needed decisions by our Western, most important Western allies.
Right. I mean, Putin did say that Russia's future actions would depend on the West's actions and threats against Russia. However, just trying to go behind the psychology, Putin's psychology here, he doesn't believe that, Russia is the one that began this invasion, right? How can you just break that down for us, the psychological warfare aspect here?
Messaging, war is very risky business, yes, and the side which is not willing to take a risk doomed to lose. Yes, this is rules and principles of war. And Putin plays pretty good from this perspective, even he doesn't have as much power as, for example, our Western allies, but his messaging is for the intimidation. And for example, Western countries could allow Ukraine to win if proper decisions would be made even in 2022 and 2023. But because of indecisiveness, which plays on the Russia's hand, we are now, heading towards World War III, or some experts would argue that it's World War IV. So Putin is playing according, military principles. He is intimidating, and he sees weaknesses of the West, the intimidation so far worked pretty well. And Western leaders, it looks like they are not listening to their military advice.
So, Vaidotas, let me ask you this then. Yes. I mean, you just said that if, Biden has under 2 months left in office. Now, you said that had things been done differently by the West, then Ukraine could have won this conflict. So why do you think that Biden decided to do this right now?
Well, first of all, I didn't believe that he will come up with such decision, but probably, the escalation triggered their decision. And escalation is, that we already know that in Russia, in Kursk region, North Korea contingent is engaged into the battlefield, and it's already third country. And if there is no response, so then we can expect even more worsening situation. So I believe that finally they understood that indecisiveness and avoiding of risking and avoiding of escalation only increases escalation. So now we can see that North Korea is already in Russia and is already fighting against Ukrainian troops. So the decision was because of that, I think.
Vaidotas, reports are coming out of Vladimir Putin saying that he had a specific weapon that he could use to strike Ukraine. What weapon are we talking about here? Do we know something about this?
Well, we should also acknowledge that Russia is also master of bluffing. Yes, we just recently, a couple of months ago, witnessed that they tried one intercontinental missile. Yes, Satan we called it, and which exploded just before the launching. So we don't know, and we also, of course, West should look carefully, and we should use our intelligence sources, about possible weapons that they can possess. But we also not should not, should think that this is also part of bluffing.
What can the potential consequences of Putin's act now be?
Of Putin's act, I think West must understand, and it looks like they are starting understanding that painting rain lines towards ourselves doesn't work. Yes, we should be more proactive, and we also should probably start more aggressive messaging towards Russia. Also to explain to them what kind of consequences it's waiting for them if they will employ more troops, for example, from North Korea, and if they will use some kind of weapons. So our messaging also should be mirrored accordingly, Russia's messaging. And not only messaging, but also it should be proved by the real actions.
Analysts are arguing that they've said that weapons like the ATACMS aren't enough to break the Russian spine, if I may. Now, what additional support would you say Ukraine needs to turn the tide of this conflict?
Well, yes, I totally agree that one weapon system will not make a difference. Only, all needed resources can make, because according to the war principle, in order to turn the tide back, Ukraine needs to accumulate enough mass, which means personnel, weapons, ammunition, logistics, everything, enough mass of on the right place and on the right time. Only in this case, Ukraine will be able to turn the tide back. But hitting infrastructure, military legitimate targets inside of Russia also will ease tension on the front in the Donbas region, because Russia will be forced to expand their logistical lines of communication. They will have to establish further away from Ukrainian border logistic nodes, ammunition nodes, command and control centers. So which also complicates, but that will not turn tide back. That only prolong and ease Ukrainian defensives. In order to turn tide back, we need to accumulate enough mass.
Okay, so now let's talk about this new $275 million U.S. military aid package, right, to Ukraine. Can you give us a little bit of details as to how significant it's going to be for defense efforts and where in Ukraine exactly is it going to have the most impact?
Yes, it is significant, and it is already second package because 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, we know that the United States provided $425 million package, and this is additional to that. And of course, Ukraine needs everything: artillery ammunition, HIMARS ammunition, and other equipment. And also, we know that in that package, Ukraine will receive anti-personnel mines, which also can be very useful in organizing defensive operations in the Kursk region, especially against united Russia and North Korean contingent. So, of course, and since United States allowed already Ukrainian to hit inside of Russia, especially HIMARS ammunition and other, artillery ammunition is also very important, because now Ukraine can disturb Russian operation inside of Russia.
Let me ask you this. I mean, we talk about military aid, but let's not forget the citizens of Ukraine as well. How is this going to be distributed, if I may ask you, among those who need it the most, the victims of this war, victims' families, maybe the humanitarian aspects? Walk us through that just very briefly, please.
Well, humanitarian, of course, aspect it is very important, because we see that Russia is destroying civilian infrastructure. It is targeting right now energy infrastructure to make in order to make nightmare for the Ukrainian citizens, because winter is already approaching. It's not approaching; it's already winter season started. So definitely humanitarian assistance is very, very important, and I believe that that assistance will come not only from one country but from entire alliances.
Thank you so much, Vaidotas Malinionis, founder and managing director of National Defense Foundation, for being with us here on TVP World Talks this morning.
Thank you for the privilege.
And that completes this edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya, but don't go away. Up next, news with Anya Kalchinska.